Cisco Secure Workload, labels and scopes. All right, there's lots of ways of importing the data into Cisco Secure Workload. This could be through third-party tools and integrations like ServiceNow, your IPAM, DNS, and many others. We're going to do it manually using a CSV just to show you the power of labels or tags and how they can be used to build a scope tree and define where assets may reside, where then we can later build our host-based micro-segmentation controls. So we've got a column here with IPs. Now, when you start moving right, you see that we're being very selective of where the tags are starting to be applied. So, for example, org name, in this case, everything is assigned my org. We've got zones, host name, application group, application name, application environment, and application type, and then shared services, yes or no. And so if we use, for example, app environment equals production, then those assets that are labeled or assigned that tag will automatically fall into that scope. Now, scopes are just containers that allow us to put workloads in and build potentially micro-segmentation policies and assign them to those scopes. Now, we've imported the labels and now they're ready to be used. So let's go ahead and build out our scope tree. So we're going to start under the root here, and we're going to call it my org. And now we're going to build our query, and we're going to use the labels that we've imported. So org name equals my org. Now this will include every asset that we've tagged or labeled as my org. Pretty powerful, because I don't have to remember the IP addresses anymore. I can use the labels or tags to define what assets go into what scopes, and I can use them even later in inventory filters to build out workload policies. Now the next one we're going to create is data center. So this again is going to be a child scope of my org, which is a child scope of the root scope. And we'll go ahead and we'll create the query. In this case, it's going to be zone, data center. And in my case, the DMZ, just based on my lab, is also part of the data center. I might have kept this different, but in this use case and scenario, I'm going to include it here. Go ahead and hit next. And now all of the workloads that fall under data center and DMZ will be assigned to this specific scope. Now you can see I went back up one level, and I'm going to create another one called campus. Now I don't have any hosts here, but I could, and they'll fall under the campus scope. So zone equals, in this case, inside. Remember, there's an IP block that's assigned to that label or tag. So now I have two scopes at the same level. This allows me to build a policy as high up as my org, but if I wanted to be specific for campus or data center or business partner, whatever it might be, I can do that without impacting the other scopes at the same level. Now let's go ahead back into data center, and we're going to create a couple of scopes here specifically for data center. For the first one, it's going to be web services. This time we're actually going to use one of the types here called web services or servers. And this is going to just change the icon that shows up in the scope tree. So app group equals web. And again, these can be anything you want. It doesn't even have to be called app group. It could be whatever name you wanted that makes sense for your business or organization. Now we'll go ahead and create another one called shared services, again at the data center level. And let's grab the one that says shared services. There it is. And the query here is going to be shared services equals yes. And now what you might be seeing is you're starting to see the number of assets assigned to this scope significantly reduced than the higher level scopes that we've seen earlier. So shared services only has 2 hosts in it. All right, in shared services, we're just going to be a little bit more granular. Again, my environment's going to be small, but the idea here is that I'm building this out to give me a little bit more option in how I build policy. So I'm going to create one called infrastructure, and it's called infra for app type. And again, those same 2 hosts are going to carry through here. And then you might have one called production and another called test or UAT. And again, the proper host should fall under the proper scope. So this one's production, app underscore environment equals production. And now it's still only going to grab, or the goal here is only to grab the, in my case, the NTP servers. So we're also going to call out app group and equals time, because we tag the NTP servers with the app group of label of time. So we've got multiple shared services scopes. And now we're going to work on the web services side. So again, web services, you might have retail, you might have finance, etc. Whatever makes sense to you. In my case, I'm going to put in retail. It's web servers again, so that's going to carry through. Application type equals retail. We'll go ahead and hit next, and you're going to see here the P and the T at the end of those host names. P is production, T is test. So that's fine. I've got retail, but I want to separate both production and the retail environment. So I'll create one called production underneath retail. App environment equals production. And app group equals web. Go ahead and hit next, and we should only see 2 items here. So there's 2 production systems. They're now in that scope, and we'll create one more. And when we start going through and building policy, you're really going to see the power of these scopes and why they're critically important when you're building out your workload policies. The creation of the scope tree is something that you want to put a little bit of thought around in order to make sure that the policies that you want to apply are in fact applied to the right assets that are assigned to the proper scopes. All right, so now we've got retail, production, test. We've got our scope tree fully defined here for our use case. Let's stretch it out, make sure we've got everything that we need here. Everything looks good. All right, and now it's time to go to the next step where we start building out policies and validating that the control is in place.